Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Game of Thrones, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And this was a pretty good episode. Now, there was not much action in it. There wasn't even kind of a stinger kind of action like at the end of the previous episode. But the thing is, I think with these last 6 episodes, they're divided essentially into 2 parts. And we gotta view them essentially as 1/3 of a movie. We got ourselves reintroduced to the conflict that's going to be going on in the northern portion for the war against the Night King. And this episode is essentially just complete character development and kind of getting everybody into the calm before the storm kind of effect and just hashing everything out before the next episode, which is going to just be exclusively action. Of course, there will be character moments in there, but this is just kind of bringing everything full circle, at least for this one conflict. So that means that we're all exclusively in Winterfell here. And I just love how we got all these different kind of character moments throughout and how they were just well enough to deal with certain characters, but also be really poignant moments in certain respects. So we start off and we see that Jaime Lannister is brought forth to Daenerys, Sansa, and Jon Snow. And, of course, Dany doesn't really want anything to do with them and pretty much wants... She's pretty much thinking of, like, killing him on the spot, it looks like. And I'm kind of mixed at that. I understand that Jaime played a pivotal role in the destruction of her family. However, her father was a batshit crazy motherfucker. And even though they called him the Kingslayer and called him a knight without honor and have just freaking essentially shitposted and trolled him since before the series even began, the choice to kill the king who was going to kill the innocent and just annihilate people and trying to essentially make himself into a dragon was the right move. And we see that going forward throughout because of certain things that deal with knights within Westeros. And of course, Sansa is at first on Dany's side with this. Jon is quiet because he's just dealing with the double explosion of I'm a Targaryen and I fucked my aunt. So, yeah, Jon isn't as much in this episode because, granted, we dealt with a lot of his stuff last episode, and he really comes in on certain important parts which deal with the character centered around him, and then Dany at the end. But we see that as they're about to go for him, Brienne, of course, stands up and really explains the case for him to stay, saying that if it weren't for Jaime Lannister, Brienne wouldn't be, at that point in time, be able to save Lady Sansa, and that he really honored his word to Catelyn, their mother, for trying to get them and protect them. And this, of course, does move Sansa, and she's like, okay, I trust Brienne with my life, so I say he stays. Of course, Dany's like, the fuck is this shit? And then she turns over to Jon. Jon's like, we need anybody we can get. He's decided, he of course tells them that Cersei's not coming, and that he promised that he would fight for the living. And that's pretty cool. I'm like, alright, yeah, keeping your oaths and everything, and trying to be a better person. And of course, everybody starts to kind of get up to leave. Tyrion, of course, tried to defend his brother, but Daenerys is hitting him with the double thing throughout the episode of, oh, I trusted you and your sister screwed us over. It's like, let me put it to you this way. Tyrion made the right inference that Cersei would, under normal circumstances, have come up and at least helped with the war effort, because that would be actually more of a Cersei move. She would have prioritized the survival of her child and would have went up and also put herself in a better position to take out any enemies that were remaining. Her staying out of the conflict is kind of uncharacteristic and more of a wild card, maybe showing more of a descent into madness or power hungriness than her being herself, which, if that's the kind of case that they're going for a character, sure. But them hitting with Tyrion being kind of stupid for trusting his sister, it's nothing to do with familial connection at that point. He knows his sister is a devious, power-hungry tyrant of a crazy one. But he made the inference that she would put hers and her child's survival above all else, which we have seen is not the case. Because Dany is hitting with that, but we see that Ser Jorah backs him up. Because after the council and after Jon kind of blows her off, we see Dany kind of hammering him on that kind of rationale. And we see everybody kind of like going through with their things. We see Arya pretty much talking to Gendry about what he's doing. He hasn't made her spear yet, and telling her that she should be in the crypt and all that, but she's like, oh, nah, I think I can pretty much handle it. I've seen a lot of Faces of Death, because he explains that what he has seen with the White Walkers and the others is that they're death. He's like, oh, I'll be interested to see this face, as she's chucking dragon glass knives into a post with great precision. Now, I understand that's to show Arya's prowess, but it also is a double-edged sword of showing her as very arrogant and not really taking a threat seriously that she should be taking, because she's just seen it as another form of death. But if you don't take that threat seriously enough and it gets you, you then become an enemy and cannon fodder to fight against your allies that you loved. So we'll kind of have to see how that works out. I'm kind of hoping that she gets the bejesus scared out of her and that she realizes what they are up against. We also see that other people are talking about what's going on with the crypt. We see this little girl wanting to help as well, but Gilly, of course, comes to kind of talk her into helping stay in the crypt and protecting people, and that helps Sir Davos as he's serving soup and everything to all the refugees that are coming in. And we also get a pivotal moment where Jaime and Bran kind of hash things out, where Jaime actually has the character development and growth to apologize for pushing him out the window. Bran, of course, has moved beyond this, and they're like, but then we wouldn't be the people we are today. Showing that, yes, he has done these evil and cruel actions, but because he has done those things and moved through with his life and tried to actually remedy these things, he has decided and become a better man for that. Because the Jaime we met at the beginning of the series would have still been with Cersei in King's Landing. And he's talking about everything that he's stolen and everything, but that he can't see beyond this battle. It's like, ooh, okay. We then get kind of more movement. We get that Tormund and the rest of them come back to Winterfell, talking about how the dead are coming close. You see they have their war council for what they're trying to do, and the overall plan that Bran comes up with, saying that, okay, the Night King wants me because he just wants death, and I'm like the memory of men, so use me as bait. Sam, of course, understands that and kind of explains that a little bit better to the war council. So instead of putting Bran in the crypt like Jon wanted to protect him, they're going to put him in the Weirwood with the Weirwood tree for Winterfell. So that way the Night King will come in close. But of course they want the dragons to be close enough to get there to take him out, but not close enough to scare the Night King off. And try to come up with a battle plan against the others is kind of a moot point, because they're going to just essentially use their whites as just cannon fodder to take out anything they can. So they get all of their troops and everything positioned. They start getting the different kind of pits and traps set up. We see that Brienne is in charge of one portion, and that Jaime asks her to be a part of her retinue and actually be there with her in the fighting. And she acquiesces, and it's kind of funny seeing the interaction, because they go through a portion where Jaime's not really insulting her, and she's like, what is going on with you? You're breaking our power dynamic here. And just It's really kind of funny. Same with seeing Jaime kind of dealing with Tyrion as they kind of reminisce on what's going on around them, talking about how Tyrion wanted to die and all that, being an old man and all that. But of course, that is when he saw Brienne to go off and talk with her. And it's a really kind of cool scene because we also see that Podrick is gotten better at fighting and he's training other people to fight as well. And it's just kind of cool seeing that character development and just in action, the showing, not just the telling. We've seen this, and now we're seeing the culmination, the effects of all these things. We see that Jon and Sam kind of reminisce that with Ed that they're the last few left from their cohort for the Night's Watch, and that they're doing it all over again, guarding the realms of men and all that. It's like, all right, sweet. We also see that Sam has decided to give Heartsbane to Jorah because he can't really use the sword that well, and that it would be better used by Jorah. And also he sees it as a kind of thing of like, okay, your father really helped me out, and I'd like you to have this to help in the coming fight. He's like, I'll be honored. And this was after he was trying to get Lady Mormont to stay in the country. She's like, no, I'm leading my people. We're going to do this. We also get some interesting kind of stuff with Grey Worm and Missandei pretty much saying that, okay, we're not going to be able to really stay here because they're not going to accept us, so what do you want to do? And Missandei's like, I want to go back to my home. And they're like, all right, cool. So, since they made that kind of plan that both of them are pretty much going to die in this point. So I'm like, oh God, whenever I see that kind of stuff, I'm always on shaky ground thinking, wow, yeah, you're probably going to. Another kind of cool thing we get is Daenerys dealing with Sansa and going and trying to kind of get her on a better footing. And she almost succeeds, talking about how she felt that you don't really view me as your queen and all that kind of stuff. And of course, she's talking about how Jon pretty much bent the knee to you because he loved you and that men are easily manipulated by that. But Daenerys is like, well, I was easily manipulated by him because I was going to go for the Iron Throne. But now I'm up here in this cold-ass motherfucking place, and what? So they kind of bond with over that. And bringing up how her other love was taller and all that just gave me like Stormtrooper references. I'm like, oh God. But the thing that stuck in Sansa's craw is what's going to happen with the North. We just got it back for ourselves. Do you want it? And that's, of course, part of Dany's thing. She wants all of Westeros. She views it as hers by birthright. That's going to be a problem. And of course, they brought up like Cersei as well, and how both of them shouldn't have trusted her. It's like, yeah. But that's kind of where it's left off to. The things we get towards the end of the episode are we get that Arya meets up with the Hound, and he's up in the battlements getting drunk. And of course, Beric Dondarrion comes in, and they're just kind of talking the shit about what's been going on. But Arya decides to go off because she doesn't want to spend her last night potentially with these two miserable old shits. And it works. It's not really deep or anything. It's just seeing those character interactions again. So she decides to go off to Gendry. He has made her spear thing, which looks pretty cool, and hopefully is used in some awesome and badass way. But she, of course, starts asking him how many women he's been with. He's kind of flustered and all that. And kind of goes into numbers, but not really. But she wants to at least know what it feels like in case she dies. And we get their sex scene, which Arya's just doing it in order to experience it. So we'll have to see what goes on, because we come on to him later and we see that Gendry's asleep and she's just kind of like looking off, not, I don't think really caring about it other than she experienced it. So it'll be interesting to see if both of them survive, if anything comes from it. I don't need them to get together, but I would be intrigued to see them get together because their relationship would be funny, antagonistic, and completely and utterly crazy. because he would try and do anything to protect her, but you just see her doing all badass shit in the corner, and he's like, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do with you? The last and most kind of important bit that we see is this great melding of all of these different characters that you normally wouldn't think coming together around a hearth. We start off with Jaime and Tyrion, of course, getting drunk and just kind of remembering the good old days, but understanding that they were still pretty shit old days. Because it was still kind of crazy back then, talking about how Jaime was a golden lion and Tyrion was a whoremonger. But of course, as they're starting to reminisce, Brienne and Podrick come in because they wanted to find some place for him, and Tyrion, of course, offers them a drink, but Brienne's like, no, we're on the eve of battle, but this is against an army of the dead. Of course, Tyrion hooks his friend Podrick up because she said half a cup, but he's like, there's a whole fucking cup. And Podrick's like, yeah, boy. And they start coming in. We see that Sir Davos comes in. He's like, hey, if this is my last night, I don't want to sit out there freezing my balls off. I'm going to stay in here where it's nice and warm. Tormund comes in, and we just have this great eclectic group. We get Tormund asking about Jaime being the Kingslayer and talking about how he became the Giant's Bane. How when he was 10 years old, he killed a giant and got into the giant's wife's bed. And when she woke up, instead of killing him, thought he was a baby. And she nursed him for like a couple months, and that's how he got so big and strong off of a giant's. He then proceeds to chug his fermented goat's milk, and just everybody's reaction to it was just like, oh my god, is this guy for real? All the while he's making googly eyes over at Brienne. And the thing is, they do a good job with it because it doesn't come off completely as creepy, which it could. He just really likes her and really wants to impress her and all that. We start shifting forward in the conversation about like knights and all that, and of course, he finds out that Brienne isn't a knight. He's like, why is that? And she's like, well, because women aren't usually knights. That's tradition. And he's like, fuck tradition. If I was a king, I'd make you a knight 10 times over. And then, of course, this brings us to the part where Jaime's like, hey, no, knights can make knights as well. And he decides to knight Brienne. And at first she doesn't want to do it because she doesn't feel that she needs it, but she does. She is one of the most knightly people in this show because of how she has gone through her journey, and it's a nice validation because it's not just coming from some random knight saying, I will knight you. This is Jaime Lannister that's doing it. It's an important gift that he can give her, not because he deems it as a boon that he's giving her to have power over her. It's a thing, it's an important bit that he can do to acknowledge what she's done and acknowledge who she is. It's not born out of an arrogance of a Jaime Lannister. It's of recognizing what is right and doing his knightly duty to make her a knight. And it's really cool how he goes through it. And of course that brings up, she gets knighted. He talks about like the bravery of the warrior, all that, and the father and the mother, and then tells her to rise as a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, giving us the title of the episode. And then, of course, everybody starts clapping, of course, Tormund the most enthusiastically, and it's just a nice validation of their relationship and of all the actions that have got all these people to this place. And then they start going about trying to figure out a song to sing, and we see that Podrick has a set of pipes on him, and starts singing this song about this woman dancing with the ghosts of her lovers and everything. And it's a really nice song, and he does it very well. I'm always kind of iffy on this, mainly because of The Walking Dead doing the folk kind of songs, but I kind of like it in Game of Thrones when they hit it really well, especially since this is coming from Podrick, and just showing another aspect of his character that he's just crazy. He could sing pretty good. He can fuck pretty good because whores will be like, nah, we don't need to pay for that. And he's becoming a good knight and a good person. He's learned much from so many different people, from Bronn and Tyrion and Brienne, and just if he could take the good parts of those people and try and be the best person he can help make a better world, as we've seen. So it's like, that's kind of cool just seeing him do that kind of stuff too. have a kind of somber song, but also kind of getting them together, be like, let's get ready for this battle kind of thing. And we get out to the last portion of the episode, and we see that Jon Snow is standing in front of the crypt to his mother, and of course Dany comes down and talks about, how relates the tale, how she heard of it, and how Rhaegar was supposed to be this kind and sweet person, and that he had raped Lyanna, but he talks about that he didn't, and that they were in love, and that he was their offspring, and that he's Aegon Targaryen. And she's like, where did you hear that from? He's like, my brother saw it, and Samwell confirmed it. Now, I can understand why she's a little bit skeptical, because Samwell has recently gotten the news that she killed pretty much 2 important members of his family. But it's really telling how she reacts to this, because she's like, oh my, you're the last male heir of the Targaryen line. And it's important how she views this, because she's pretty much already viewing it as a threat to her claim on the Iron Throne. She doesn't immediately go like, Jesus Christ, I fucked my nephew. Or that, well, that's not as much of important, because we could technically co-rule if we got married because we love each other. She immediately views it as an antagonistic place. Now, I understand it's an important thing. There's a lot of stress and pressure going on. But it's really telling about her character. For all of the information that we've seen from Dany, a thing that we need to know is that she views the Seven Kingdoms as hers. And she will take it in fire and blood. And what is she going to do with this information? Now, granted, the big battle will be upon us. Even though we don't know if both of them are going to come out alive, it would be interesting if both of them came out alive and see how this goes, because this is a conflict I really want to see play it out, because she's going, all right, this is mine, this needs to be mine. But now she has one bigger ass wrinkle than just Cersei. Jon has a legitimate claim that could supersede her claim. But she's not thinking rationally, because if she was thinking rationally, she could be like, okay, if we married each other, we'd be king and queen, co-rulers. That hasn't come into her head yet, if she would even see that. So that's an important aspect of her character that I'm glad that we saw. Of course, this is interrupted because they get the war horns, and we see that the White Walkers have come within range of Winterfell, and we see they're badass. We see not the Whites first. We see the White Walkers themselves on their horses and all their White Walkery glory, just getting ready for battle. It's like, boom. So this next episode is crazy looking. I loved seeing the preview that they set up, and this one is going to be an intense one. There's going to be a lot of action and a lot of character choices that are going to have to be made for either saving people or killing people, and people dying, and we're finally getting to a climax. And it'll be crazy to see how that happens and what the resolution will be, and how episode 4 will set us up for the rest of the episodes. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.